Hey up. Time for a film that I have seen before, but I cannot remember anything about. I haven't seen this one since I was about 14, I'd say. Not only was it one of the first hard gore films I ever bought, but it was actually one of the first video nasties I ever remember buying as well. We're taking a look at Nightmare in a Damaged Brain, also known as Nightmares in a Damaged Brain, or just the generic Nightmare. This is a 1981 American slasher film, directed by Romano Scavolini, who looks like just directed a bunch of porn films. Notoriously banned and butchered, this video nasty was, for some reason, a staple amongst us as teenagers. We were really amused by the name, and we'd reference it quite a lot for some reason. I don't know, we were young, stupid, and Nightmare in a Damaged Brain is just a little overly descriptive, I guess, and it just tickled us. I haven't seen this in a long time, but the one that I did buy as a teenager was actually this copy, which is still Screen Entertainment, but it is missing the Hard Gore branding. So obviously I had to rectify that for these reviews. So expect to see this one knocking about in Sheffield CEX at some point in the near future. Or I might just fob it off on a friend, who knows. Anyway, let's see if it's any good, shall we?
Kathy, I saw somebody looking in the window at us. Me.
Look, for what it's worth, I'm sorry.
Sorry!
It's probably one of the kids in the neighborhood.
The plot follows George, who is in an insane asylum and keeps having a recurring nightmare where he flashes back to when he walked in on his father having sex and then murdered his father's mistress. He's let out of the insane asylum with a new experimental drug and heads straight back to his home. In his house though, we follow his family, specifically CJ, who's the eldest boy, I believe, who is also a notorious prankster, so when murderous dad comes a-knocking, it turns into a bit of a boy who cried wolf situation. You know what, I can kinda see why I don't really remember much of this film. It didn't really work for me. Now, before I get into it, I know this film's got a lot of love online. I've seen the scores on Letterboxd and things like that, but it didn't work for me at all. I just found it pretty boring. The time spent with the family, a lot of it just seems like fluff, and I didn't really care for the most part. The kills are few and far between. They are good when they happen, but there's not enough going on for me really. Now don't get me wrong, there is a vibe to this film. There's a low-key scuzziness going on throughout it, and there's some pretty ridiculous moments that I enjoyed, but overall didn't really work for me, I'm afraid.
Just get in that! I don't even want to see you. Get in that television room. Turn on the television. Look at this mess.
And I'll need some pictures, just like those on the wall there. Just simple pictures. Polaroids will do.
Okay, I have a friend that, I'll get you the pictures, and you can...
This film has definitely taken a fair bit of influence from Halloween, but what slasher type 80s film hasn't really? You get all the tropes here, you get the POV, the weird masked killer, the babysitters, and of course the childhood trauma and murders, leaning more towards patricide in this one. The acting from the kids, it's not terrible, but it's not great either. It's fine, leaning towards bad. And I could say the same about the adults really, probably leaning more towards the bad. There's a lot of screaming in this film as well, and it always makes me think of like a school play or something. It just feels a bit amateurish, I guess. The gore though is a big highlight here. Some really good kills, it looks gnarly and filthy, and the dirty print really enhances it all. It's pretty much what you'd want from this sort of film. Added on top of that as well is a sleazy element, especially in the first half. There's a fair bit of nudity. Again, all works tonally in the film, and yeah, not too bad really, not too bad. A highlight for me as well, something that I did really want to point out, was the flashback to the murders. I really enjoyed these because the little boy murders his father's mistress while dressed as a little boy waiter in a dicky bow, and it just looks pretty funny, pretty ridiculous, and it made me laugh a fair bit. This film's actually got a little bit of interesting history surrounding it as well. It was one of the initial 72 films to be added to the Video Nasty list in the 80s in the UK. But from this, some of the heads of the distribution company of the film released a unapproved cut that the BBFC hadn't seen, with 48 seconds of unseen footage. And because of this, there was a court case. Some of the heads just got a fine and a slap on the wrist, but some of them actually had to spend 18 months in prison just for 48 seconds of film. It was finally released uncut in 2001, the version we're looking at, but it isn't actually the uncut version. So I think there was a bit of a mix-up somewhere, some people got a bit confused, and it turns out that the version that we've been talking about today is actually a US theatrical cut, which does have some scenes added back in. It's a more complete version than was knocking about in the 80s, but it's still missing, I think, about 3 minutes, up to about 3 minutes of footage, which includes some detailed violence and stuff like that. And then finally it was released fully uncut in the UK in around 2015. There is one more bit as well with this. Apparently the film got in trouble with Tom Savini, special effects guy. If you don't know, people generally know who Tom Savini is. Dawn of the Dead worked with Romero and all that sort of stuff. But he was credited on this film as having worked on the effects. Now, he claims no such thing. He says that he was merely an advisor. They'd come to him and ask for a bit of advice, and he'd give it, and that was that. He wasn't on set or anything like that. The director insists that he was on set. There is photographs of him on set as well, and says that he did the effects, basically. A way to sort of sell the film. But Tom Savini's tried his very best to distance himself from the project completely. So that is the history of Nightmare on a Damaged Brain. Interesting.
You know him, don't you? Your name's CJ? How old are you, CJ? Is your age a secret?
9.
9, you're a pretty big boy for 9. I bet you're smart too.
Time for the print, and it's not very good. It's not very good at all. It is very low quality. It's washed out again. We had this problem with El Chupacabra. It's sort of bright and washed out, and the blacks aren't black. They're sort of like a bluey grey in this one. It's kind of hard to make out what's going on as well. It's very low resolution. But on top of that, there's ghosting as well, which just makes it a bit of a muddled mess at times. There's also a constant VHS style flicker. It could be VHS, I'm not sure. There's a constant flicker along the bottom of the screen. If I hazard a guess, it's a VHS. It's an American VHS that's been converted over, but I'm not sure. The sound's not great either. It's not the worst, but it's muffled in parts. It's hard to make out what people are saying. And there was one audio glitch that I spotted as well. So overall, not a very good experience. Just a muddy mess, I guess. And on the disc, we get a stills gallery, chapter select, some very low quality artwork for it, and an advert for I Spit on Your Grave. And that's it. No trailers or anything like that, no behind the scenes, nothing. A very bare bones release. And time for the case. The information's okay, worded a little weirdly, but it's readable. The runtime's correct too. The artwork on the front is pretty silly though. The blood looks like it's been added in MS Paint, and it's really weird that he's in this tube thing. The more you look at it, the stranger it gets. Also, this box is covered in quotes, so let's have a little look at them, shall we? Better than Evil Dead and Driller Killer. Now, that's just completely wrong, isn't it? This one is so over the top, it's ridiculous. Clearly written by someone who hasn't seen many films. And lastly, calling it a horror classic with Friday the 13th, Dawn of the Dead and Texas Chainsaw. This must have been written sarcastically, surely. I also really want to talk about the menu on this disc because it's completely bizarre. I haven't mentioned a menu in a while because they've generally just been generic and fine, but this one's really odd. Everything's labelled weirdly. Anyone for Brain Soup is play the movie. Don't know what's going on with that. Brain Soup, what's that all about? Nightmarish Scenes is scene select, easy one. Nightmare Nostalgia is a selection of extremely low quality DVD and VHS covers and movie posters. Nightmare Gallery, again easy to figure out that one, Stills Gallery. Now Graveyard, this one I was wondering what the hell this was going to be. Now it's an advert for I Spit on Your Grave. It's just this image, it's just this, but it does include this little typo on it. And then there's Damage Websites. This is just a selection of full URLs, pretty much all of them are dead links now, to sites affiliated with and reviews of this film. The naming's so weird, I guess they were trying to be cute, but it's just really stupid. Overall then, unfortunately, I didn't really get the love for this film that most people seem to have. I found it a bit of a dull slog, and the interesting moments were so few and far between. It was just a bit of a shame really, and I wasn't even laughing at how funny bad it was just sort of wishy-washy and bland, I thought anyway. But that might be down to this DVD of it. I'm not writing this film off. I would recommend this to anyone who has any interest in the video nasties and that sort of thing. A scuzzy, low-budget, crappy horror with violence, with decent violence in it as well. Now, there are multiple new ways to watch this film in the UK. There is the 88 Films Blu-ray from 2015, which I think is the first iteration of a fully uncut one in the UK. And then there is the more recent Severin Blu-ray and 4K release of these films. Now I'm interested in watching these because I feel like if I could actually see what I was looking at during the film, I might get more enjoyment out of it. Avoid this one. It looks like it's been dipped in mud and it looks terrible and there's no special features. Even if you see this one for cheap knocking about in CEX for £4 or something, don't bother, spend the extra money and get the Blu-ray or the 4K. I've been recommended the 4K as well, apparently it is really good. And I'm going to check these out probably at some point because I feel like I might have more appreciation if I can actually see the goddamn film. So, bit disappointing this time, a little bit disappointing. Not a complete write-off, but not as good as I was hoping for. And next week, I didn't know anything about this film and then I saw the back of the case and I think it told me everything that I need to know about it. So I think you're in for a treat next week. Maybe not me. We're going to be checking out Demonium. And I'm not going to show you the back of the case here. I'm going to save it for next episode. Oh boy. Another quick additional bit before we go. I'm off script here, so bear with me. The Don't Mess With My Sister DVDs have arrived, and unfortunately they're both identical, no Hard Gore branding or anything, both Screen Entertainment, mind, but no branding whatsoever. I've still been looking online for these Hard Gore branded Don't Mess With My Sisters, and they are nowhere to be seen. Now the film was released in a double pack with I Spit On Your Grave, so I speculated maybe that was the one with the Hard Gore branding, but here's some images of that, and as far as I can see, it's just a generic Screen Entertainment, no Hard Gore branding release in the double pack. Also, there's one on Amazon for 50 quid, and I'm not taking a punt on that. I'd rather not waste 50 quid. So, as far as I can see, there is still no Hard Gore branded Don't Mess With My Sister releases, and I really don't know what to think anymore. I'm gonna keep looking, and I will update as and when if anything comes to light, but if any of you know of a way that I can get a hold of a copy of Don't Mess With My Sister, Hard Gore branded, please let me know. As far as I'm aware though, I don't actually know if it exists or not. I'm not sure at all, but I will keep my eyes open, and as I said, if I don't find the right branding for this by the end of the Hard Gore reviews, I will review the film and say that it was sort of semi-released. It's a mysterious thing. It'll be on the question mark section, I guess. Please send me any information if you've got any. I'd happily accept an image at this point with Hard Gore branding on it, because I haven't seen any proof that it exists. But yeah, that's my update for now. Please send me stuff if you know anything.